Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. We're going to be jumping back into the SCP universe with some more videos from the Exploring series. I kind of wanted to do a follow-up video on the Symphony Syncope group after doing a Class of 76 video. Yeah, I was very intrigued after watching that Class of 76 video, because it seems like during whatever was going on in 76, this faction is doing something big. You know, they affected multiple high schools, working with young people, something to do with, you know, whatever happened with those bodies in the lake that we don't recognize, as well as this thing Quiet Madness made, whatever happened at that high school. They seem to have had a wide influence during 76 with young people in particular, and so I'm interested to find out why and what that might be, etc. So we're gonna check out today the Exploring series SCP-4833 Symphony Syncope. Links will be down below in the description, as always, to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. Please do me the favor, go over there and click those links. If you enjoy this video, give it a like. If you enjoy the man's content, give the man a sub. He definitely deserves it. He makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe as well as others. We're doing this reaction live for my YouTube members. If you would like to come in and join our discussions, we'd love to have you come on in here, join the discussions, give your 2 cents and opinions and theories, etc. on what we're talking about, what videos we're going over. If you would like to do that, there's a join button down below this video, as well as a link in the description to the membership tiers and benefits that I offer. Check them out, see if any of them have any interest for you. If you decide you want to take your support to the next level, doing so helps me keep doing these YouTube videos and putting more content out for you guys on a regular basis. So we greatly appreciate you doing that. If not, that's perfectly fine. I greatly just appreciate you coming in here, checking time, you know, out of your busy day to take a look at these videos. And yeah, hope you enjoy them. So, with all that said, shameless plug's done. Let's take a look at this here video. This is again SCP-4833. Can't talk. The Syncope Symphony.
SCP-4833. The Syncope Symphony. French author Marcel Proust once wrote that remembrance of things past is not necessarily the remembrance of things as they were. True. Memories fade.
History is often written by the victors. Doesn't necessarily mean the history that we know is the truth.
Necessarily the remembrance of things as they were. Memories fade and change, whether we realize it or not, and our memories of past events can rarely be completely trusted. Today's SCP-4833 has a lot to do with memories, much like the group of interest it's connected to, the Class of 76. I've already done a video on the Class of 76, and while I might recommend viewing that first to enhance this one, it's not necessary, as 4833 does its own thing. The article starts with some text, more akin to a tale than an SCP article. As usual, to pad my video length, I'll read it verbatim for you.
Oh, there we go. Pad the stats, brother.
Rows upon rows of empty seats line the hall. You've made sure only you're here tonight. The others are all off on business or caught up in their work. You made sure to register a week's holiday after the business down in Magaluf. Your sheer exhaustion needs to be tended to. In the few months since your promotion, you haven't had much time to yourself. But there have been things you've been curious about for a long time.
He has.
Things beyond your particular remit. You made a requisition request for a file, stuck in a filing cabinet in one of the more obscure parts of Site-01. It's pretty clear that it's something most people would like to forget. The reel begins to play, all automated, of course. Grains flicker across the screen before bursting into an image. It's a high school playing field. The year must be about 1975.
Bro, there's so many like school playing fields that look like this down here in Florida that it's just spooky. Like this is literally what like Florida looks like during like fall, like November, December. I can't tell how many times playing soccer or football as a kid, like this is exactly the type of place that I'd be playing soccer or football at. It's spoopy. Anyway.
76. There's no audio, and the image flickers and distorts at inconvenient moments, but the forms are all clear. They're playing rugby, American football, something like that. It's not quite right. The camera stretches and moves around. A smiling group of people, spectators, all wave at the camera. Their movements are not constructed or acted or precise. They're messy and uncertain, giggling and youthful. People, real people, sitting right in front of you. Right? You look down at the document, but you can't quite concentrate. You remember school, don't you? Your experience
No,
is different.
I
Different
don't.
place, different time. But you remember it. The disciplined format of time, the early pangs of heartache, the promise of all your dreams before you. An infinity of youth, shaped by your name. It was all ahead of you. That sunset curve over the horizon. You do remember, right? Don't you
I
remember?
do, actually. For as old as I am.
There will be more of these little sections as we go, but let's look at the actual SCP for a bit. SCP-4833 is a group going by the name Syncope Symphony, consisting of somewhere between 10 to 29 reality benders with similar abilities.
Interesting.
The group first came to prominence in the late 1940s, and their activities revolve around experimenting and anomalously altering teenagers between 15 and 18 years old.
Dude, I was the same way. Like, high school, I didn't really care about high school for me. Like, I didn't have a problem with high school. I didn't have, like, I got along with everyone fine in high school. It wasn't one of those things where I, like, got bullied or picked on or anything like that. Like, I didn't have any, like, real issues like that. I just didn't like high school, man. It wasn't, like, anything that was crazy. Also, my high school was like, under renovation my entire high school years. From freshman till I think the last semester of my senior year, which I really didn't even have to go to because of how they changed how the school scheduling worked or whatever. Like, it was under construction, so we were in portables all the time, just moving from like one side of high school to the other. Like, high school kind of just sucked for me, man. Like, the only like really fond memories were just playing sports. Other than that, like, yeah, I was never not one of these guys that was like really super nostalgia about high school.
For decades, they were a rather worrisome group due to kidnapping and forcibly altering these youth, but their activity has significantly declined in recent years.
So wait, what? They kidnapped and forcibly were altering like youth personalities and memories or something? Like,
And anomalously altering teenagers with similar abilities. The group first came to prominence in the late 1940s, and their activities revolve around experimenting and anomalously altering teenagers between 15 and 18 years old.
you know, I wonder, I don't know why it just pops in my brain, but like, I wonder if this has some kind of like tie-in actually with like MK Ultra, you know, because wasn't that also kind of a thing like that where government was experimenting with drugs on younger people? I don't necessarily think like kids, but I think teenagers into young adults are experimenting with like drugs and manipulating kids' brains and stuff like that in certain ways to see how things would react. I think that's what it was about. I could be wrong though, but anyway, those just kind of give me that kind of vibe.
For decades, they were a rather worrisome group due to
I mean, no
kidnapping
shit.
and forcibly altering these youth, but their activity has significantly declined in recent years.
I mean, yeah, like kidnapping youth and altering their memories and or personalities. Like, what's the reason behind that, other than either like some kind of weird cult trying to get kids to like worship them, or if they're trying to like change humanity for some like strange ideology to like create a better future or what they consider to be a better future. You know, I don't know, but like, what is it about kids that they're trying to like target and change?
Aside from this, though, the Foundation really has very little idea about the group's goals, fundamental
Right.
nature, or specific methods. Interviewers with survivors of the group's experiments indicate that their ultimate goal is instituting a state of harmony, although what that means is also unknown.
I mean, yeah, that can mean a lot of different things, but it could just mean like a state of similar thinking, You know, if everyone thinks the same way, there's no war, no conflict, no hatred, racism, all those kind of things. So harmony in that way, and or it could also mean like a hive mind kind of situation, a group of minds, you know, working together as one. You know, I don't know. Interesting.
Syncope Symphony's anomalous effects are heavily connected with memory, as mentioned, as well as music, as implied in the name of the group. The group,
Which that also makes sense as to why, you know, in a place to quiet madness made, like everyone in town had a lot of memory issues. So it very well could be something to do with Symphony Syncope. It could also have to do with the amnestics that were used by the UIU. They weren't quite as good and had lasting side effects. But I feel like it probably has more to do with Symphony Syncope, you know, etc.
group often operates as a performing orchestra or running a musical supply shop, and witnesses of the reality benders describe them as wearing masks, although details are scarce. The Foundation first heard about the group in the mid-1970s, a few decades after they started operating.
Yeah, I mean, like, wasn't it it seemed like in the Class of 76 video, like they were trying to essentially, it seemed like they were creating like, or trying to find a group of like-minded people, and those people that weren't necessarily thinking the right way or didn't fit the bill or didn't pass whatever experiment they were working on, I think got sent to whatever that lake is and became the SCP, you don't, you know, recognize the bodies in the lake situation. And I think just the one character, I don't remember his name, that they talked about, you know, he broke free, but he still had like a subconscious connection, and he remembered it later on when he got the SCP Polaroid that was a picture of him in high school, and, you know, hey, we had a great year, kind of that like triggered something in his mind again, and he was like reconnected with what happened. So I don't know. It was all very strange. Kid having the kid was having memory issues, and so were everybody else. But also seemed like at some point they took over the town and the school and were controlling the announcements. Right.
Operating, which is pretty impressive, and a dedicated task force was created to track down their members. So far, the number of Syncope Symphony members the Foundation has tracked down is 0, but they have helped contain much of the group's activities. Based on what the Foundation can deduce, the Symphony first began operating in 1947, with kidnappings beginning to occur around the world, particularly concentrated around Yellowstone National Park in the U.S. In 1964, they began mass experimenting on people in the town of Boise, Idaho.
So, like, it happened after World War II, right? What was the time you said?
7, with kidnappings beginning to occur around the world, particularly the Foundation can deduce. The Symphony first began operating in 1947.
Yeah, so that was like pretty much right at the end after, well, it was pretty much like right after World War II. Like World War II ended in 45, right? 45 or 46. And then so 47 was like right at the end of that. So it's interesting that they started kind of right after World War II. I wonder if it's something also tied over with maybe some occult stuff the Nazis may have been doing, just because of that time frame. Like maybe I know the you know, I don't know how much of, you know, Nazi World War II stuff is tied into the SCP Foundation in any of the tales. I know that World War II was one of the great occult wars, I think, in the SCP universe. I haven't really gotten too much into that. But, you know, I wonder if that is part of a tie-in. Like maybe some of these reality benders were actually Nazi cult members or something like that, and that's part of what they're trying to do. You know, they're trying to mess with people's minds again to like create some ideal society like they were trying to back then. I don't know. Could be some weird government shit. Even the Foundation doesn't know everything everyone is up to. I mean, it could be, yeah. Who knows? But it is kind of interesting that it started right at the end of World War II. So I feel like it does have some kind of tie-in with things that had happened back then. But it could just be a coincidence, you know.
With kidnappings beginning to occur around the world, particularly concentrated around Yellowstone National Park in the U.S. In 1964, they began mass experimenting on people in the town of Boise, Idaho. After this, due to pressure from the GOC and other groups, they relocated their headquarters. In 1969, they opened up a music supply shop titled Syncope Symphony,
Right.
but it seems to be an entirely mundane store. In autumn of 1975, a mass cognitohazardous event took place at a lake, now classified as SCP-2316, where you probably don't recognize the bodies in the water.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Nothing specifically links this event to the symphony, but it fits their operations. Of course, in 1976, the symphony were responsible for events involved with the anomalous class of 76, as they experimented on a large number of students across the country. As mentioned, if you want to hear more about these specific events, check out my Class of 76 video.
So he did say there that during 76, they experimented on kids across the country. So, I mean, yeah. Class of 76 plus what happened and the Thing of Quiet Madness made. Even though in the actual tale of A Thing of Quiet Madness made, it isn't suggested, it isn't like the Symphony Syncope isn't brought up at all. It seems to be that they were involved in some way.
This spree of experimentation, of course, brought the Foundation's attention, and it's at this point that the symphony went underground, drastically reducing their kidnappings. Some have speculated that the reason the group stopped most of their activities at this point is because they've achieved their goals, and additional kidnappings have just been a way of fine-tuning things.
I mean, it could be they achieve the goals, or it could be that they're just lying in wait, you know, trying to wait for the GOC and the SCP to not pay as much attention to them and then go back to what they're doing, you know.
1988 was the last known encounter between a Foundation personnel and an individual affected by the symphony until 2019, and we're given a log of the interaction. The encounter happened in a bar in a small city in the Soviet Union between Agent Hardcastle of the Foundation and Vasily Stroganov, who had been experimented upon.
Right, that's true, he did. He did have a bag that said that, so I'd forgot about that, yeah. Well, it's up to each person to choose whether, yeah, or an actual connection. I mean, it just seems to be because, you know, there are, like you said, multiple high schools around the country and kids were affected in that summer of 76. So, I mean, and like a lot of things tied with memory loss, a lot of people in that town had memory loss issues. And also it could be that potentially the town not being able to have offspring could be a side effect of what they did as well with their experiment, you know? So, I mean, that town could have been like a mass just experiment that the Symphony Syncope did. And a side effect might have been the creation of that A Thing of Quiet Madness main SCP, or that SCP could have already been there and it got enhanced by what they were doing, you know, et cetera, you know, who knows?
By the symphony in the late 1940s. Vasily had apparently helped out the Foundation with something in the past, as he himself is a reality bender, possibly because of the experiments by the symphony, or that was what drew the symphony to him in the first place. Vasily wants nothing to do with the Foundation now, but Hardcastle insists that he tells them about the symphony, specifically about something that happened in 1954. Vasily fears the symphony finding him, mentioning that they believe in a design bigger than the last. He says that they're hardly taking anyone anymore, because they found what they were looking for, and he asks Hardcastle to leave him and them alone. When Hardcastle says that he'll have to take him in by force, Vasily stares at him and asks him about Marcy Green, a girl that Hardcastle loved as a teenager. Hardcastle is clearly stressed, as Vasily continues to press him about her, using his abilities to learn his memories. The two teenagers had been separated, and Hardcastle had said that he would come back to her, but apparently he never did. Vasily says that the Marcy in Hardcastle's head is just a shadow, a fragment that only tells a fraction of the original story, and he tells him to go back to the fields. This causes Hardcastle to collapse to the floor and die, while Vasily quietly cries.
Interesting. So I wonder if he had a tie-in with what happened back then too, whether it be the town or something else. Interesting. I mean, yeah, I get very kind of, Professor X, Jean Grey kind of vibes with a lot of how they're talking about reality benders in the SCP universe. Definitely very X-Men feeling.
The log ends with Vasily stating that he had to do it, and they'll never get out of his head because they want it too badly. What exactly the Symphony want, though, is still unclear. We get some more text of the individual reading this document. You remember Hardcastle. He'd been at Site 90 when you just started out at the Foundation back in the late 80s. He'd been a mentor to you, fresh from your doctorate and hungry for knowledge. A few months later, he disappeared. Transferred, you'd been told. Now, he barely existed at all. Not many people left to remember him, and they'll be dead soon. This document immortalizes him, but only as a description of a recording, an abstraction of abstraction. You light up a cigarette and keep watching the footage. The cameraman is at home now. His mom's clothes are old-fashioned even for the time period. She looks like a faded 50s housewife, smiling a perfect smile at the camera. Her anachronism is flawed, though, and little bits of the contemporary are sneaking in. The father smiles, short-sleeved shirt, old-fashioned watch, beer can, sunglasses. A man who never thinks he's out of place, and always is. You know these people. They're the same as any thousands of parents who live today, but their past placement still changes them, alters them. They're not the same. They're too natural to be from back then. You must have been, 13, 14 back in 1976? It's become a lost time even to you. You only remember flashes. A woman smiling. A father laughing. That person you fell in love with. Teachers with strange faces. Grains on old camera footage. Black and white. Color TV. Shadows of shadows. You return to the file.
It is kind of interesting how they are working this though, because it's the idea of I'm in my 40s now, I'm 42 years old. And so when you think about your high school days, they are kind of a blur, right? You don't really remember specifics. You might remember a teacher's name, but maybe not their face, or maybe their face, but not their name. The same with other kids and some acquaintances you might have had, people that you may have hung out with in class, but you didn't really have much of a relationship with them outside of class. You might just talk to them while you're in class and hang out with them in class, but outside of a specific class, you guys didn't really hang out and do anything together, kind of a situation. So it is kind of interesting that they're playing kind of on that idea of, how memories can be blurred and changed and altered as time goes by from what you really remember them being. I kind of like that idea.
Another agent, Kowalski, was investigating the Symphony before her suicide in 1997, and had compiled a number of relevant documents. First is a shipping manifest from Marshall, Carter, and Dark from 1947, detailing various items likely connected to the Symphony. These items include several anomalous musical instruments, such as a French horn that forces the user to forget key aspects of their childhood, or a violin made out of wood from Yggdrasil, the world tree.
Violin
Other
made from
items
Yggdrasil.
are more temporal in nature, such as a book titled Visions of the 20th Century, 1940 to 1970, which contains impossibly accurate predictions and photographs from after the publication date.
Interesting.
There's also a Yellowstone Park Visitor's Guide from 1970, the second reference so far to Yellowstone, and an item listed as Documents and Items Recovered from the Marianas Trench.
They keep mentioning Yellowstone, and of course, them talking about them having a lot of activity with kidnapping people around Yellowstone, but also, SCP-2000, the facility where the Lazarus Project machine for Mass Effect fans, where, if humanity gets wiped out, they can be recreated there. That's also in Yellowstone. I wonder if there's some kind of loose connection to that for somehow, some way, some reason. Did these reality benders make SCP-2000? Because we don't really know what the origin of SCP-2000 is. are these reality benders? Do they remember things from what humanity used to be? Because I guess it's implied from SCP-2000 that humans and humanity, the way we are now, aren't how they originally were, and that during a global wipeout event, SCP-2000 was reprogrammed to make humanity what it is now instead of what it originally was, kind of a situation. So maybe they know or somehow are involved in that and are trying to, I guess, remake what humanity used to be or something. Yeah, just a piece of the world tree, no big deal. It's fine. We just got a piece of Yggdrasil, this thing that connects various realms together, and we just turned it into a violin. It's fine, no big deal. That's reference to recognize. I can't remember the documents from the Marinus Trench are popular in SCP. I think it's a note from the former timeline that made it through reset. Yeah, interesting connection. Yeah, so I wonder if there is any kind of connection with that. I wonder if there is something with the SCP-2000 and Symphony Syncope. It might not be. I mean, there's nothing specific that was said in SCP-2000. As far as I can remember, that tied in ending with this. But anyway.
I'll explain that one later. The second document is a message from a Foundation researcher to a site director in 1959 about a test subject that had presumably been affected by the symphony. It seems that the subject affects the memories of those near them, leading Foundation researchers to wear asbestos suits to prevent the effect.
Yikes.
Although they're complaining about the health problems associated with asbestos. The subject themselves has lost all of their own memories, and believes that they are a school child in 1976, despite the year being 1959.
What is it with the year 76? There must have been some kind of, astronomical event or something like that. Like, some kind of, I don't know. Well, why is it that 76 has some kind of meaning even in the past? It's strange.
They can't give accurate information on events after 1954 though, and possess a curious obsession with exploration of World War II era bunkers.
Saying there's that World War II.
The third document contains a few excerpts related to 3 different test subjects in 1968. The first subject, a 19-year-old male, had been altered by the symphony sometime prior to 1966. He described the individuals that had experimented on him as wearing white carnival masks. The subject can alter previous events in time that they themselves experimented, and only to a limited degree. So far, they've only altered a couple of mundane events from a few years prior, and they still believe the year to be 1966. The second subject is a female, aged 36, who underwent significant anomalous alterations in 1949. In their current state, they are obsessed with the Marianas Trench, frequently talking about a sheer fall off the edge of the world. They also now possess an advanced piano-playing ability, and the ability to speak in an unknown language, similar to the Algonquin languages, but only when they're playing the piano. The third subject is a female that died when they were 30. They had been in Foundation custody since 1959, and believed themselves to be a 17-year-old from 1976, with altered memories. Their predictions of events over the course of the previous decade have been entirely incorrect, claiming that a President Kennedy was assassinated, and there had been a war between the US and a country known as North Vietnam. They ended up hanging themselves in 1969, leaving behind a series of pencil drawings of a violin, a World War II-era bunker, and a Super 8 film camera. It turns out that a Super 8 camera would end up being found in a small cave in Idaho in 1985, and the fourth document is a log of the footage recovered from it.
So they're trying to say in the SCP universe that the Kennedy assassination and Vietnam War didn't happen? Am I getting that right? Let me rewind that real quick.
Kennedy was altered memories, believed themselves to be a 17-year-old from 1976, with altered memories. Their predictions of events over the course of the previous decade have been entirely incorrect, claiming that a President Kennedy was assassinated, and there had been a war between the US and a country known as North Vietnam.
So yeah, are they saying that? I think they're saying that something happened to this timeline, or just different than the one the normal. So are they saying there are? Because it sounds like they're saying that was predicting that Kennedy was assassinated in the Vietnam War is going to happen, and then it didn't happen. That's what it sounds like they're saying.
Is a female that died when they were 30. They had been in Foundation custody since 1959 and believed themselves to be a 17-year-old from 1976 with altered memories. Their predictions of events over the course of the previous decade.
Yes, he's saying that she's made predictions of events that happen over the next decade.
It have been entirely since 1959 and believed themselves to be a 17-year-old from 1976 with altered memories. Their predictions of events over the course of the previous decade have been...
Of the previous decade. So I think she's saying that the Kennedy assassination and the war in Vietnam happened, but at a different time, I think is what's going on. Because
been entirely incorrect. They had been in Foundation custody since 1959 and believed themselves to be a 17-year-old from 1976 with altered memories.
So she'd been in custody over the SCP since 59, but believes to be someone from 76. So if she's been in custody since 59, and he's saying that the events happened in the previous decade. Okay. So I think what's happening is she had said that the Kennedy assassination was going to happen and the war in Vietnam was going to happen in 59, talking about from 59 previous years. So that stuff hadn't happened yet, I think is what's going on.
Their predictions of events over the course of the previous decade have been entirely incorrect.
Yeah, so because she was in their custody in 59, and she's talking about events like they happened in the past, over the past 10 years. So, from 59 to 49, which obviously Kennedy and the Vietnam War didn't happen until after that, I think is what's going on. So she's giving accurate predictions of the future, but saying the time is incorrect.
Claiming that a President Kennedy was assassinated.
So it's almost like she's from the future and was, her personality was sent back in time or something like that. I think. I don't know. It was a little confusing.
And there had been a war between the US and a country known as North Vietnam. They ended up hanging themselves in 1969, leaving behind a series of pencil drawings of a violin, a World War II era bunker, and a Super 8 film camera.
It's interesting, though, again, tying back into World War II. I feel like there must have been some kind of experimentation happening. Maybe Nazi or maybe something else. Again, I know that World War II was supposed to be one of the great occult wars or something like that happened in the SCP universe, but I'm not super familiar with those yet.
It turns out that a Super 8 camera would end up being found in a small cave in Idaho in 1985, and the fourth document is a log of the footage recovered from it. The video opens on a hillside, reminiscent of the American Midwest, but with strikingly different colors.
Yeah.
And a settlement nearby that seems to be a small town from the mid-70s. A large cloud is above the town, intermittently red and black, with several indistinct gray shapes emerging from the cloud and entering the town. The individual holding the camera runs up the hill before briefly dropping the camera and picking it back up, revealing the cameraman to be a male in his mid-teens, a violin case strapped to their back, with a hairstyle typical of the 1970s. The cameraman continues to run, eventually coming across a cave, which he enters. Inside, he finds a thin, rose-tinted film stretched across the center of the cave, and graffiti on the far wall which reads, "Safe House." The cameraman walks towards the film and switches the camera off. When the video picks up again, the cameraman is now severely emaciated, and the colors of the environment now appear to be normal. He is talking to the camera, but it's not clear what he's saying. Later, the footage picks up outside of the cave, as the cameraman limps towards the hillside, throwing up on the way. He points the camera at the town, now in ruins, and shows large amounts of scaffolding and construction materials. Thousands of indistinct but apparently identical humanoids are working on the town, wearing identical orange jumpsuits. The weather effect from earlier is completely absent. When the camera footage comes back, pointing at the town sometime later, the town now resembles Boise, Idaho in the mid-1940s. The cameraman turns the camera to face himself, and due to image distortion, it's hard to make out, but he appears to be screaming. Next, inside of the cave again, several words can be seen scrawled on a wall in black marker. Synapse, sibilance, signs, sayonara, the Sibyl. Finally, one word is circled. Syncope.
Definitely sounds like some time fuckery is going on here as well. People being transported through time or personality. I don't know. Weird.
As the cameraman turns the camera to himself again, they no longer appear emaciated, but their face and hands specifically are suffering from image distortion in the video, and they are wearing a white Venetian mask. The footage ends here. We're given some more text from the individual reading the file as things start to come together. There is a place that nobody talks about. It's buried miles under Yellowstone Park, and it's a mystery even to the Foundation which created it. It's the one thing which truly terrifies them. The primary purpose of this place, this cavernous expanse of steel and concrete, is repopulation.
Yeah, SCP-2000.
Restoration. But there are things buried in it that have a broader purpose. Scranton reality anchors, the XACTs, other buried machines you know nothing about. Things which alter time and change causality in ways which are subtle, unknown, unheard.
So maybe SCP-2000 is even more than that. Maybe it's not even just about repopulating, it's literally about rewriting timelines. Interesting. Almost kind of like, you know, The Matrix, where it's like, but instead of it being a simulation that's resetting humanity back, you know, to a specific timeline where we were thriving, it's literally like resetting reality and timelines itself back to specific times and then repopulating humanity and all the personalities and memories of people in that time. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but that's interesting if that's the case. And maybe it's even a situation where, like, it can pick and choose what humanity is from different timelines, because maybe humanity evolved in different ways in different timelines. And that's why we as humanity, the way we are now, look different than, I guess, potentially what we did before in other ways. Maybe it's even a situation where the SCP-2000 is like testing different evolutionary forms of humanity to see which one is going to like work out the best or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of like throwing stuff out there, but interesting.
Sometimes things might fall through the cracks. Smoke clouds your eyes as you stare into space, deep in thought. You're too absorbed to notice changes on the screen as the reel churns and churns through its ancient pictures. A group of friends laughing in front of their lockers, talking about some forgotten joke or gossiping about unknown persons. The content is not preserved, only the form of it. A boy, unseen by the cameraman but in the background of the shot, is seen writing on a piece of paper. His eyes and face are serious, in concentration. He looks up occasionally, twitchy and nervous. Beside him lies a violin case. You don't see the boy. You've already turned back to the file. He's not a part of your memory. That other image of an image of something that might have been real. Was he ever really there? The symphony finally made another big move in 2019, initiating a hostile takeover of an abandoned high school auditorium. The Foundation swooped in and ended up only finding one member of the symphony, although this was a big break either way. Agent O'Hara was sent in to interview and detain the entity. She finds the individual standing on the stage with a heavily distorted appearance, although they seem to be an elderly male. They are wearing a white carnival mask, an outfit typical of stage conductors in the mid-20th century, and holding a golden violin. Around them is a large amount of clothing, similar to what orchestra members would wear from the same time period. In the interview, all of the dialogue from the entity is distorted in the video footage, so we don't get to know what it said, only Agent O'Hara's responses. O'Hara assures it that she's not here to hurt it, and she just wants to understand what they're doing. The entity asks about a bunker of some sort, but O'Hara doesn't know what it means, and instead asks about the rest of the symphony. The entity gestures to the clothes around it, and although O'Hara first guesses that they died somehow, she comes to a realization that the symphony didn't really have much of a plan, and instead they faded away.
Interesting.
The entity picks up its violin and takes a couple of steps forward, causing O'Hara to pull out her pistol. She asks it why they experiment on children, and what's going on with SCP-2316, the lake. There's some back and forth, and the entity seems to imply that the children they experiment on are like them in some way. The entity begins struggling with some sort of unseen force centered on their violin, and it says something about interpretation and another force at play. O'Hara rebukes him, assuming that the symphony is just a sort of malicious group that kidnaps children for their own reasons, but the entity continues to suggest that there's another force at work, pushing them along. The dialogue suggests that the symphony experimented on children in order to make them remember something from the past, but they've largely failed. O'Hara continues.
So I wonder again if it's a situation where they're like trying to get people to remember what humanity used to be before, a global wipe event happened and SCP-2000 remade them. I don't know. Interesting. It is interesting that there is some kind of tie-in with SCP-2000. Huh.
Continues to get angry, telling it that it was all a con because there is no past to remember.
Right.
The entity begins to play the violin, which starts to affect...
Because, I guess, yeah, it's indicating that there is no past to remember because we had all been wiped out. And the memories that we have are just implanted. We're like all clones. We're not like, I guess, beings with souls, maybe, or something. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm remembering the end or spinning pieces ago, so I'm just going to shut up. Gotcha. But, yeah, I feel like it's a situation where, maybe these reality benders are what's left of what humanity really was before the first wipeout event happened and SCP rebuilt humanity. And maybe it's a situation where, like, yeah, we're just like clones made by a machine, so we don't really have souls or something like that. And because all the memories and everything are implanted, and they're not necessarily real, there is no past. So I don't know. And they're trying to get certain people that are like them that can maybe bend reality in certain ways. They're trying to, I guess, maybe get enough people together with the ability to bend reality to maybe reset the timeline again so that humanity can, like, be revived to the way they were with souls or something. I don't know. Just, yeah, throwing stuff out there, spitballing.
Affect O'Hara, and the entity begins to play the violin, which starts to affect O'Hara, and she recounts some memories of her last summer after high school. She had a fight with some other girl that she was involved with, and mentions that the hills were green, but there was a red sky over the horizon. The entity is now playing the violin at a speed and complexity beyond what humans are capable of, but they try and pry themselves away from the instrument, eventually collapsing to the floor as the violin hovers in the air, playing itself. The entity clutches its head and makes a distorted sound believed to be a scream. O'Hara asks who we are, and if you remember.
And I also, again, I wonder if this ties in somehow with like pattern screamers, right? Like the idea that maybe this force that they're working against is some other kind of like pattern screamer or screamers that are still trying to wipe out humanity or something like that. I don't know. But I just feel like there's some kind of involvement with pattern screamers too. But anyway.
Several figures appear around her with heavily disfigured faces, and she finishes by saying that she does remember. Shortly afterwards, other Foundation agents entered the auditorium, only finding Agent O'Hara, fully conscious, with no memory of what had happened. Finally, we get one last section of text from the individual reading the file, before I'll get to the explanation. A girl is smiling in a hallway. She laughs at some unheard joke her friend is telling her. A teacher walks past, a worried expression on her face. The sun is shining through a window. The picture quality washes the scene in grainy light. That hallway never existed anymore. This reel was recovered from the bottom of the Marianas Trench, along with a few other tiny fragments. In the dark, buried beyond where any man could go.
So I wonder if that's like I haven't done anything with the Marianas Trench in the SCP universe yet, but I wonder if that was used as some kind of like time capsule situation where, like, again, humanity in its like original first timeline knew there was maybe some kind of cataclysmic event that was about to happen, and so they threw some kind of time capsule down at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and if it ever got recovered, you know, to remind people of what happened or something like that. If I remember correctly, that's what's implied in that one. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. I'll have to do a follow-up with the Marianas Trench now, too, to see what the connection is, but that's what it seems like what's happening here.
The only place anything has ever been found of the things that once were. Nobody remembers her. All you see is some light on a page, an image, a shadow of a shade that happens to resemble this creature.
And I also wonder if that's why, like, the faces are disappearing. If that's, like, again, an indication of, like, we're humanity without souls or something like that. Like, we're not real. And that's why, like, faces are disappearing in certain pictures and things, or memories, you know, indicating that those people, like, aren't really real. But I wonder, like, what the tie-in is then with the bodies in the lake that we don't recognize. You know, is like, I don't know. Interesting.
From long ago. It's not a memory, but a flicker that indicates that something, anything, once moved there. The reel ends. Its sound echoes through the room. Click, click, click. White and black lines flicker across the screen as you sit there, cigarette smoke filling the air in front of your blank face. One day, you will never have been either. Some disaster or trivial catastrophe will happen, and the whole rigmarole will start again. A bunker, a lever, deaths and endings. A movement will end, but the symphony will go on forever.
I wonder if the bunker is supposed to be the entrance to SCP-2000, even though it says World War II bunker. But I wonder if that's...
Hi!
You know,
I'm looking for Ray Finkel.
And a clean pair of shorts. Thank you for the sub. I don't know why that happens. I apologize for the alert going off in the middle of the recording here. I have them muted, but they still obviously hear it. So, but thank you very much for the sub, whoever that was. Yeah, I wonder if, like, yeah, the World War II bunker entrance thing they're talking about is the entrance to SCP-2000, and the idea of you never having been a thing is again because we're just kind of clones with no souls. The symphony is forever, and I guess the idea of the symphony potentially is what humanity, like the souls of humanity, the like conscious connection of the souls of humanity or something like that, you know? That's what the symphony is. And maybe the kids that they're finding that are like them are clones that have actual souls. You know, maybe there's like 1 out of every 1,000,000 or something like that. People are born with an actual soul or something like that. I don't know. And so that's what they're looking for. That's the connection they're trying to find. Interesting. That's like Deep John Matrix lore at this point, random sub notification. Yeah.
And even if it doesn't, even if all fails, your own life will be gone. It will be extinguished as so many others were. You will be a corpse, a skeleton, dust, a thing that never was, and nobody will remember you.
That's pretty harsh.
The trees will grow over your grave. Flowers will dance. Humans will linger on, then die, or spread out among the stars with no memory of their homeland.
I mean, technically, that's what happens to everyone anyway. Like, how many people have lived and died on this planet that no one remembers? And I mean, it's sad, honestly. To me, that it's sad. Like, how many people have lived who have done good things and done good deeds and have created great works of art or whatever that no one knows who they were or remember at all anymore, you know? It sucks. To me, it's sad, but it is just a fact of life.
The earth will crack and burn, and the molecules will die, and the atoms will die, and the dark will consume them all. What few scattered waves remain will dissipate, and nothing will ever have happened. An infinity with no concept of itself. Or maybe not. You pick up your lighter and burn the documents, watching each lick of flame consume them. You stand up, your face stark against the flickering lights, and walk out of the room. Nothing beside remains. Okay, so a lot of this is pretty weird, of course, and I'll tell you right now that this SCP does not answer what exactly the Syncope wants, or what exactly they are. Some things should best be left to mystery, after all. This does provide some very interesting info about their background, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're connected with a lot of stuff that happened in 76 with different schools and kids. But also, they seem to have some kind of connection with SCP-2000, which, again, is an SCP that potentially is recreating humanity in some way, shape, or form after global catastrophic events are happening. And who knows if it's recreating humanity in the same way that it originally was. Seems to be an implication that what humanity is now is not what humanity originally was. And maybe that what we are now don't have souls. Who knows?
This SCP is largely connected to another one, which you might have already figured out. SCP-2000, located underneath Yellowstone National Park. SCP-2000 is a large underground facility, or bunker, that is used by the Foundation in case of an end-of-the-world scenario, to repopulate and recreate the Earth.
Yep.
The facility possesses all of the capabilities and resources to recreate the world as it was at a certain time, including people, cities, landmarks, artwork, etc. It can recreate memories and life histories of people if needed, and afterwards releases a mass amnestic across the globe so that no individual remembers the process. Once it's all done, life simply goes on, as if nothing happened. But as the article mentioned, sometimes things fall through the cracks. One of these things, as alluded to in the Marshall, Carter, and Dark shipping manifest, is a document recovered from the Marianas Trench. This document appears as a separate tale, actually predating the writing of SCP-2000, but it alludes to an alternate timeline in which everything went to hell and the world effectively ended. The fact that the document was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench suggests that it wasn't an alternate timeline at all, but instead our own time before the Foundation fixed things. SCP-2000 raises the question of how many times has the Foundation
Yep.
actually used the facility.
Yeah, how many times has humanity been wiped out and recreated? Again, are we even really humanity anymore? Are we just clones? We have souls. What is the meaning of any of that? You know, does our existence even have any more meaning again? But then again, did it ever to begin with? You know, who knows?
Since the memories could easily slip away.
And are the memories it's giving us, are they real? Were they real memories of real people, or are they just generated memories? You know, is it like creating personalities in people and then generating memories? Are the connections that we have with people, families, etc., are they real, or are they just like generated memories? And has the families that we have, like, you know, a wife or a husband or a brother, sister, daughter, son, whatever, parents, you know, are they real, or are they just, you know, something that SCP-2000 created as the best chance for genetic diversity amongst the population of humanity, so that humanity could thrive, you know, kind of a situation? Because, I mean, if memories have been wiped and altered, you know, who says that yesterday we weren't just created by SCP-2000 and this is like literally the first day of a new part of humanity, you know what I mean?
That all being said, it would seem that the Syncope Symphony are individuals that retain their memories after an end-of-the-world scenario, and SCP-2000 is used.
See, I think it's more than that. I think they're like, it might be a situation where like humanity has died. Maybe they're pattern screamers or something like that too. After that, maybe they've turned into that or something like that, and they even remember back further. Maybe they're like good pattern screamers. But I feel like it's a situation where maybe like they were the first generation of humanity. They died and they have become, you know, souls, whatever, you know, they have ascended to whatever a potential afterlife could be. And I guess they're seeing what humanity's been recreated as, and they're trying to like reset the timeline of humanity back to when humans could have souls again. And that's why they're only connecting with certain people, because maybe some people are being born with souls, whereas the majority of people aren't. And that's why they're experimenting those people specifically. That's just my personal theory. But anyway.
We see this in the video log of the town in Idaho, as some sort of scenario is playing out, causing really strange weather effects and weird gray figures. The cameraman manages to hide out in an anomalous safe house in a cave, protected from the scenario as well as the amnestic released after the Foundation came in to fix things and revert the world back a few decades. The symphony, therefore, is going around and trying to make teenagers remember the real past, not the fabricated one from SCP-2000. Although, again, why exactly they're determined to do this is left to your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to use music as part of their work, as they believe that music has a consciousness of its own, transcending memory. A slight understanding of their backstory and methods doesn't really lend them any sympathy, though, as they've still caused plenty of problems for reasons unknown. So, as it would turn out, no solution is without flaws, not even the Foundation's magical tools to fix reality. Experiencing the end of the world is bad enough, but experiencing it and then remembering it is likely enough to break an individual. SCP-4833 shines a light on one of the most mysterious groups in the SCP universe, but even after it's done, there's still plenty of mystery left to ponder.
Very true. Will we get a quote? We get a quote, and we get a long one. He said that they have to reboot things. Said to have the technology to recreate almost anything, and that making people is actually pretty easy. Said that they would clean out and contain things, rebuild the broken cities, and repopulate them. It would take a long, long time, but he said they would eventually get things back to the way they were before. He even said that they could recreate memories and stuff. I just sat, kind of stunned, and watched him as he kept going along, getting dressed like it was all no big deal. I told him he was nuts, that there was no way people could just forget, that this could all just be swept away. He stopped, looked at me, smiled, and said, "Why not?" been done before. I don't know if that man was crazy or not, but I think he was sane. As he was leaving, he said something about putting my house underwater. Please don't let them brush me away. Don't let them hide us. Try and find more. I know there's got to be more people who tried leaving something behind. Don't let the world die in vain. Remember us. Interesting. In that quote right there about putting my house underwater, maybe that's actually something to do with the bodies in the lake. Maybe they were put underwater and he wants to be remembered. Document recovered from the Marianas Trench. Interesting. Interesting. So, I mean, I've kind of really gone over my theories as we went along about a lot of what the implications and stuff could be. It's very interesting that it has a tie-in. As soon as he said Yellowstone at the beginning, I really thought about SCP-2000 and was like, I wonder if there's some kind of tie-in. I just didn't say with it at the time until later on. But yeah, that is very interesting. It obviously does seem to indicate that whoever Symphony Syncope is, they remember a time before whatever various events happened that wiped out humanity, and we are who we are now. And again, I've kind of given my theory on potentially what it could be. Potentially, you know, originally humanity had souls in some capacity or something like that, and maybe now we don't because we're just clones. But I guess occasionally maybe those who are born, you know, of maybe they can be born with souls, and those are the people that they're trying to connect to. You know, I don't know. Interesting. So, but interesting story. And I'm going to have to do a follow-up now with the Marianas Trench to see what that's about, because obviously that plays some kind of time with this. So that'll give me some more context with that. So look forward to that coming in the future. But that's going to do it for this video for now, guys. Very interesting. I enjoyed this one. Hope you did too. Links will be down below to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring Series channel. Do me a favor, click those links. If you enjoyed this video of his, go over there, give it a like, give you know, the man a sub. He definitely deserves the love. He's made a lot of great content for the SCP universe as well as others. We're doing this reaction live for my YouTube members. If you'd like to join our discussions as we go through these videos, we'd love to have you come in here, give your 2 cents, give your theories, give your speculations, join in the discussions. There is a join button down below, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefit tiers. Check them out, see if any of them have any interest to you. If you decide you want to take your support to the next level and help me out monetarily, doing so allows me to obviously focus more on making these videos and making more content for you guys. So we greatly appreciate it. Regardless, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy days to come in here, hang out, join us, and watch these videos. If you like this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and it helps the channel grow. And yeah, thanks for taking the time. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're having a wonderful day. See you on the next one.